Why did you finally decide to write your memoirs?
Well, I started, 50 years, well now it's 53 years ago, for the sake of my family, for the sake of everything, I knew that I wanted to retire, but I wanted to find an excuse for myself. And why am I going to retire? It was my 50th anniversary. So I went live on television and announced it. And the phones rang off the hook, because I also said, I want to donate my record collection. I want to do some charity shows. I mean, hundreds of people called and hundreds of emails came in. And then I said, look, let's write a book. So I spoke to my wife, and we started almost 2 years ago writing Not in a Shy Way, and it's been an incredible experience. I've got all the old pictures, I've got the contracts, we put everything in there. It's now up on Amazon, it's on Kindle, and I'm really seriously going to look at having a documentary now in the near future.
You actually got your break as a teenager at Expo 67.
Yeah, I mean, it really started when I was 15 living at home, and I realized I wanted to be a DJ, and I loved music. And that's where it all happened. But just shortly after that, Expo came, and that was an amazing experience. I mean, some of the biggest artists in the world were all coming to Montreal. So I worked hard to make sure that I can get there. I hooked up with Ben Kay, who used to marry, Les Baronets, Renee, of course, who eventually married Celine Dion, and Renee got me a pass for Expo. So I had an official press pass. So I went to see all the shows, but I also went to all the pavilions. I went to the Canada and Russia, and I'd walk to the front and flash my pass, and I had hair down to my shoulders, and like 200-300 people looked and said, what's with this guy? How come he's getting in before? And security said,
you actually didn't want to be on radio. You wanted to be a DJ to interact with live audiences.
For sure. I mean, I started listening to Dave Boxer, and he was amazing, and I used to win all the contests. I used to remember the phone numbers. I still know, 276-2614, and I had a rotary phone, and I would dial everything except the last digit, and then I'd push 4, and he said, oh my God, Sheldon Kagan. So that's how I started to win records, but I really didn't want to sit in the studio and not know who was listening to me. I wanted to entertain.
Now, how did you parlay that into concert promoting?
Well, I realized that the big bands weren't coming to Montreal, in the 60s and 70s, and I was playing, Glenn Miller and Artie Shaw and Buddy Rich, and I said, why are they just bringing pop groups to Montreal? Why don't these artists come? Now, the tricky thing is there was no internet, so today if I want to reach Madonna, I go online and I'll find out who her agent is, who her manager is, but then I have to go to New York and literally pound the pavement, go see agents, and negotiate to bring the groups to Montreal.
Now, you were a champion of jazz and rhythm and blues artists, and you were bringing black artists to the city and booking them on a regular basis when no other promoters were working with these artists.
I had no concern whether you were black or white or jazz or R&B. For me, it was all about the music and getting the best people to entertain people and putting on the best shows. And it just so happens when you look back, probably 60% of the artists that I brought in were black. But that's fine. It's always been fine.
Now, not only jazz and R&B artists, but you booked quite a wide array of musical artists. You brought Donovan, who was a big flower power superstar in the 1960s, and even a Canadian country and western show with the legendary Hank Snow and Stompin' Tom Connors.
One day, sitting at my grandfather's house, he said, you ever do no country shows? And I said, who's speaking? I mean, where did that come from? And he didn't know the names of any of the artists, but I guess he used to watch some TV shows and he liked country. So I researched, and God, we did the Paul Sauvé Arena, and Stomping Tom was stomping, and it was wild. My grandfather was happier than could be. So for me, it's the shows, but I try and do as much as I can with the family, and think, I've always given comp tickets to charities for every show right from day one, because that's good. We should do that.
So congratulations on your new autobiography. It's called Not in a Shy Way, the Sheldon Kagan story. It's a great Montreal story. If you've lived in this city for the last half century or so, I mean, all the names are there, all the usual suspects, and it's just a great contribution. You've made a great contribution to Montreal entertainment. Thank you.
And thank you. It's great to be here.